Imagine France, late 18th century, a kingdom of dazzling contrasts. On one side, the magnificent Palace of Versailles, a symbol of unimaginable wealth and power. On the other, the sprawling streets of Paris and the vast countryside, where millions of people are struggling just to survive. This isn't just a tale of two cities. It's the story of a nation on the brink of explosion. A story that will change the world forever. This is the story of the French Revolution. To understand the storm that was about to break, we have to look at the world of King Louis XVI. Ascending to the throne in 1774, Louis inherited a kingdom riddled with problems. He was a well-meaning man, but indecisive and ill-equipped to handle the immense pressures of his role. His court at Versailles was the epicenter of French high society, a golden cage where aristocrats lived in a bubble of luxury. They paid almost no taxes, their lives filled with elaborate parties, intricate fashion, and political intrigue, all funded by the state. The Queen, Marie Antoinette, became a symbol of the success. Her lavish spending on gowns, jewels, and elaborate hairstyles, whether deserved or not, earned her the nickname Madame de Fissy. The perception was that while the monarchy and the nobility feasted, the common people starved. And starve they did. France's social structure, the Ancien Regime, was rigidly divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy, the second was the nobility, and the third estate was everyone else, about 97% of the population. This third estate, which included peasants, city workers, doctors, lawyers, and merchants, bore the entire tax burden of the nation. To make matters worse, a series of bad harvests in the 1780s sent bread prices skyrocketing. For the average Parisian family, bread was the staple of their diet. When the cost of a single loaf could equal a day's wages, hunger turned to desperation, and desperation turned to anger. The people looked at Versailles, and they saw their money being squandered while their children went hungry. The ideas of the Enlightenment, liberty, equality, and the rights of man were spreading like wildfire, providing a language for their grievances. They began to question the very foundation of the monarchy. Why should a king rule by divine right when his people suffered so unjustly? The financial crisis was the final spark. Decades of expensive wars, including France's support for the American Revolution, had pushed the country to the brink of bankruptcy. In a desperate attempt to solve the crisis, Louis XVI agreed to convene the Estates General in May 1789, a medieval assembly that hadn't met in 175 years. Representatives from all three estates gathered at Versailles, but the system was rigged. Each estate got one vote, meaning the clergy and nobility could always outvote the third estate. Frustrated and feeling voiceless, the representatives of the third estate took a radical step. They declared themselves the National Assembly, the true representatives of the French people. When they were locked out of their usual meeting hall, they gathered in a nearby tennis court and swore an oath, a famous tennis court oath, not to disband until they had written a new constitution for France. The king was losing control. Rumors swelled through Paris that he was gathering troops to crush the new assembly. Fear and paranoia gripped the city. The people needed weapons to defend themselves, and they knew just where to find them. Their target was a formidable medieval fortress in the heart of Paris, the Bastille. It was more than just a prison. It was a powerful symbol of royal tyranny and oppression. On the morning of July 14, 1789, a massive crowd of artisans, shopkeepers, and laborers stormed the fortress. The battle was bloody and chaotic, but by the end of the day, the people had won. They tore the Bastille apart, brick by brick. Its fall was a monumental victory. It showed that the common people, when united, could challenge the full might of the king. The French Revolution had truly begun. In the wake of the Bastille's fall, a wave of revolutionary fervor called the Great Fear swept across the countryside. Peasants, fearing retaliation from the nobles, rose up, raiding and burning manor houses and destroying records of their feudal obligations. The old order was collapsing. Back in Paris, the National Assembly moved quickly. In August 1789, they issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. This groundbreaking document, inspired by the American Declaration of Independence and Enlightenment philosophy, proclaimed that all men were born free and equal in rights. It called for liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. The motto of the revolution, liberté, égalité, fraternité, was born, but the king was still a problem. In October, a crowd of thousands of Parisian women, furious over the continuing bread shortages, marched the 12 miles to Versailles, armed with pikes, clubs, and anything they could find. They demanded that the king and his family return with them to Paris. Cornered and intimidated, the royal family had no choice but to comply. They were escorted to the Tuileries Palace in the city, effectively becoming prisoners of the revolution. France was now a constitutional monarchy, with the king. Powers severely limited by the National Assembly, but for money. This wasn't enough. The revolution was about to enter a much darker and more radical phase. In June 1791, Louis and his family attempted to flee France in disguise, hoping to rally support from other European monarchs. They were recognized and captured in the town of Varennes and brought back to Paris in disgrace. This escape attempt shattered any remaining trust the people had in their king. He was now seen not just as a flawed ruler, but as a traitor. As France declared war on Austria and Prussia, who were threatening to intervene, the revolution became more extreme. The radical Jacobin Club, led by figures like Maximilien Robespierre, gained more and more influence. They argued that the revolution could not be safe as long as the king lived. In August 1792, revolutionaries stormed the Tuileries Palace, and the monarchy was officially abolished. France was declared a republic. King Louis XVI, now known simply as Citizen Louis Capet, was put on trial for treason. He was found guilty, and on January 21st, 1793, he was executed by the new, efficient killing machine of the revolution, the guillotine. The king's execution sent shockwaves across Europe, and the revolution entered its most terrifying chapter. The Reign of Terror. With France besieged by foreign enemies and torn apart by internal rebellions, the Committee of Public Safety, dominated by Robespierre, was given vast powers to defend the Republic. What followed was a brutal period of paranoia and state-sanctioned violence. The law of suspects was passed, allowing for the arrest of anyone deemed an enemy of the revolution. The Revolutionary Tribunal worked relentlessly, sending thousands to their deaths. No one was safe. Nobles, priests, political moderates, and even fellow revolutionaries who were not considered radical enough were sent to the guillotine. Marie Antoinette followed her husband to the scaffold in October 1793. Paris ran with blood as the guillotine became the symbol of this new, terrifying form of justice. Robespierre, known as the Incorruptible, believed that terror was a necessary evil to create a republic of virtue. He sought to completely remake French society, to Christianizing the nation, creating a new calendar, and promoting a new civic religion, the cult of the Supreme Being. For a time, he was the most powerful man in France, but his fanaticism and the ever-growing number of executions created enemies on all sides. His colleagues in the National Convention began to fear that they would be next. In a dramatic turn of events, on July 27, 1790, Furor, the 9th of Thermidor, in the revolutionary calendar, Robespierre's opponents rose against him. He was arrested, and the very next day, the architect of the terror met the same fate as his victims. He was executed by the guillotine, and the Reign of Terror came to an end. With Robespierre gone, France sought stability. A new, more conservative government called the Directory was established. However, it was weak, corrupt, and plagued by constant political infighting and economic problems. The French people were exhausted by years of chaos, bloodshed, and instability. They longed for a strong leader who could restore order, and that leader was waiting in the wings. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. A brilliant and ambitious young general, Napoleon had achieved stunning military victories for France and Italy and Egypt. Becoming a national hero, he was seen as the man who could both defend the revolution's gains and end its turmoil. Seeing the Directory's weakness, Napoleon saw his chance. On November 9, 1799, the 18th of Brumaire staged a coup d'etat with the backing of the army. He overthrew the Directory and established a new government called the Consulate, with himself as the first consul. For all intents and purposes, he was now the dictator of France. The French Revolution was over. In just 10 years, France had gone from an absolute monarchy through a radical republic to a military dictatorship, but the world had been changed forever. The revolution had destroyed the old feudal system, championed the ideals of liberty and equality, and unleashed the powerful force of nationalism. It set the stage for the rise of Napoleon, who would soon plunge all of Europe into war, and its legacy would continue to inspire and terrify people for centuries to come. The story of France was now the story of Napoleon, but it was a story that could never have happened without the fire and fury of the revolution that preceded him.